Everybody knows Bernard Kerik. He was the 40th Police Commissioner of the New York City Police Department, New York Times best-selling author, and a voice of reason in these times. He joins us now on the phone. Good afternoon to you, my friend. God bless you, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Dana.
So I have to, I guess the first question that I have to ask you here is that's the big struggle is, you see what is happening in the streets, and my oldest son, for instance, and a lot of people around America are saying, oh, you got to bring the iron fist down. You got to respond this way with force. And then, you have others out there saying, well, you need to have clear deterrence, and you need to act when people are committing crimes. You also have to incorporate de-escalation. What is the best way to respond to this stuff? Because there are some of these cities where I don't know what the mayors are doing. I've never seen anything like this. Your thoughts?
Well, you don't know what the mayors are doing because they're not doing nothing. And that's part of the problem.
True.
Under normal circumstances, Dana, what would happen is the political figures, the political leaders, they would get together with the community activists. They would get together with various community leaders. They would de-escalate. The cops would stand on the outskirts of this. There would be peaceful protests. Think back to the time of, Martin Luther King and John Lewis and guys like that would protest civil rights issues. They would come together. They would talk to the communities. They would talk to the government. They would march. They would speak. They would, take control of the younger generation that was out there trying to act like a fool, and they would get things done. We're not seeing any of that today. You don't see any of that. You have mayors and governors who, unfortunately, are mostly left-leaning, radical Democrats that for years now have not been able to secure their own cities. Chicago, Baltimore, Detroit, Milwaukee, a number of them. Chicago, for example, this weekend they had 82 shootings, 19 dead. I would bet Baghdad didn't have that over the weekend. That's what happened in Chicago. Under normal circumstances, these mayors and governors, they're not securing their cities. They have high poverty. They have low economic income. They have low real estate values. They've let the cities deteriorate and destroy themselves. And now you've got this. So if anybody really thinks that they can control what's going on, you're either naive or just stupid. It's not going to happen. So you're not getting the de-escalation, and the cops have to go in there and instill peace through force. And the problem is, on top of the community unrest, which there may be some, real community unrest, there may be some. Right. But we now have a national, probably an international movement with Antifa, Black Lives Matter, and some other groups that are spending tens of millions of dollars to basically create chaos in, I'd say 60 different cities around the country. 42 states have been impacted. If you think of a covert operation like we've seen over the last 4 days, this has to cost tens of millions, maybe $100 million to put this type of attack together, to send out the people that are out there doing this. Who's doing it? Young white kids, white men and women that are going into these minority communities, jazzing up these kids, getting them weapons. And I have to tell you, I talked about this morning. I urge mothers and fathers in the black community, the brown community, don't let your kids fall prey to this stuff. I give a lot of credit to somebody like Joe Jones, the UFC fighter.
Yes.
I watched him on a video,
that was
take
amazing.
spray cans away from Antifa kids. A young black mother ran up to a car and basically told the guy driving the car, 3 people in the car who happened to be white, threw this brick into the car and said, "You just gave these bricks to these kids down the street. What are you doing? Why are you doing this?" Well, this is happening all over the country. and it's a left-leaning, radical, anti-American group that is very much like what we saw in the 60s, 70s, and 80s with the FALN, the Black Panther Party, the Weather Underground, the Sam Melville, Jonathan Jackson unit, the Black revolutionary groups. It's the same mentality, the anti-American mentality, except now they have better communications, they have social media, they have travel. A couple of friends of mine were in airports on Friday and saw a number of these young kids coming into New York City. And you can tell exactly who they are. But all my friends are cops. So they know exactly who they are when they see them. And they're basically saturating the cities.
Wow. And that is incredibly important. You mentioned the mom going up to the car and the moms and dads getting involved in this. I'm sure we're talking to Bernard Kerik, at Bernard Kerik on Twitter. I'm sure that you have seen these stories of these pallets of bricks that have been, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but a friend of mine who lives in downtown Dallas, I'm in Dallas, said that outside of their spouse's place of employment, not near a construction area or anything else, overnight, a pallet of bricks appeared. And it was there when the spouse went to work. And I keep seeing them appear all around the country. And there are tweets. People are taking video and photographs. There was one that appeared in a suburban neighborhood in Frisco, Texas, which is maybe, 30 minutes from me. A pallet of bricks in the entrance to this subdivision. How difficult is it to even, if we don't even know who's behind it, you don't even really know what you're pushing back against or how widespread they are. This just makes it that much more difficult.
Well, honestly, Dana, as long as people's collecting this information, I'm probably aware of about 13 to 15 of these.
Wow.
The pallets with bricks. I think we're up to about 15 that I've seen or been told about. You have that. You have abandoned vehicles in certain cities that aren't really abandoned. They look abandoned, and then when you get into the trunk, they're loaded with Molotov cocktails. They're loaded with stones and bricks. Keep in mind, the Antifa members, the Black Matters movement kids, they're running around. If they're a part of this movement, they're not keeping anything on them. They don't carry anything. They don't even carry ID. They carry nothing. All of these tactics, everything they're doing is in the Antifa guidebook, the handbook. It tells them how to operate, tells them how to travel, tells them how to fight, tells them what to say and what to do. That's exactly what's going on. That's what we're seeing. But I will tell you, with the president's directive yesterday and the attorney general's movement on conducting a nationwide investigation to determine who they are, where they're from, what they're doing, and then charging them federally. And this is extremely important.
Super important.
Charging them federally for domestic terrorism. I think we're going to see a heavy hammer coming down soon. And
one last quick thing about that. We're talking with Bernard Kerik. You'd mentioned that the president made the announcement yesterday that Antifa is going to be classified as a domestic, or not domestic. They didn't use the word domestic, which is legally telling, and we'll talk about that too later. But as a terrorist organization. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but that means that by classifying it officially as such, that they can go after individuals who are organizing and engaging in this criminality under RICO statutes?
Yeah. That's just one of the elements, but that's one of the principal elements.
Right.
Also, they can get into the financial backgrounds because that's a major key here.
Yes.
Looking who's funding this. I personally believe it's George Soros and people like him. That's what they're going to be looking for. Where are the funding levels? How is it coming into the country? Is there international participation? Things like this. But I think it's going to be a lot bigger and a lot broader than anybody could imagine.
Yeah, I think so too. Bernard Kerik, I can't tell you how grateful we are for your voice out there. And I'm not even kidding. My youngest son, my oldest son, who's actually in studio with me, I thought you had the best explanation and the best approach to this. And I rewound your remarks and I had him watch them because I thought out of everybody talking, I was like, that he's making the most sense. You really are. I appreciate from a mother. I appreciate that. I really do. God bless you. At Bernard Kerik on Twitter. Thank you so much, my friend. Godspeed.
Thank you.